Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Super Tease video. And there are, in fact, class changes moving into the next reset for patch 11.2 on July 25th. They've done another round, and I am very curious to see who the winners and losers are going to be for this, because there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about Mythic Plus players being very upset with the viability of their specs. So I'm kind of expecting at least a decent shift from this update. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. It's these types of videos that's really good for getting kind of a pulse on how good your spec might potentially be, given how much testing and feedback and relaying back and forth with consistent changes is actually occurring at the moment. So you're not locking yourself into something that might be a rough ride. Now, Death Knight, historically, it's been a rough ride. Is it going to be more of a rough ride? They're nerfing Riders of the Apocalypse. Undeath damage is being reduced by 20%. Reaper's Mark will no longer automatically explode below 5%. Reaper's Mark will now instead travel to the nearest enemy when the affected target dies. So it's going to be a little bit of cleave going kind of pull to pull in dungeons, but it's not going to, you have to manually do it. Unholy 4-set bonus. White Mane's epidemic damage has been reduced by 25%, so a little bit of a nerf here. Set bonus change in PvP is not a huge deal, mostly just because it's already nerfed in PvP. Ideally, you want the set bonuses getting nerfed and not your baseline abilities, because that could be a disaster in PvP. Trollbane's Ice Fury damage has been reduced by 30% for Frost, and Mana Forge 4-set bonus. Trollbane's Frostlight damage has also been reduced by 20%. So you guys are getting snipped a little bit, but maybe it's better to get snipped now than to be giga OP on the release. Although every time they've done a really big rework, usually that spec is pretty juicy and tender and everybody wants to play it. So they must have something really out against DK if that doesn't end up being the case, considering that's pretty much what's going on with you guys in this patch. Sand Lane Mana Forge 2-set bonus now extends the duration of your diseases on your main target by 4 seconds, up from 3. And Mana Forge 4-set bonus increases the damage of the infliction of sorrow, although by 35%, down from 50. I don't know. This is probably a bigger loss, I would assume, this 15% as opposed to this lasting for an extra second, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it just gives you infinite dots. For blood, you're just getting 8% damage across the board, and tank imbalance seems to be a pretty big deal. I think Vengeance Demon, or at least in PvE, is completely taking over. For Frost DK as well, you're getting the 3% guy strikes again, reducing all damage by 3%. But Frostbane is getting 15% damage increase, and Howling Blades will now scale with your mastery. Murderous Efficiency now rolls for an additional time when consuming 2 Killing Machine procs with Killing Streak. And Fix an Issue casting, causing free obliterates and frost sights to consume 8 runic power under the effect of Empowered Rune Weapon during obliteration. So some bug fixes, minor tweak down, buffing some abilities that were underperforming, to try and equalize the talent builds here. For Unholy, the effects of Rune of the Apocalypse now correctly increase all damage taken from the Death Knight by 4% per stack. Okay, so that seems like a very big bug that's been corrected as well for Unholy. For Vengeance, I can't believe they're buffing you. 8% damage increase. Oh, but they're nerfing your mastery by 17% to try and tweak things around here, equalize them. Curious to see where it ends up. Feral is getting 8% damage buff across the board, so they've hired a new guy. The 8% guy. The 3% guy is getting outworked by the 8% guy, because like up here we got blood 8%. There's way more 8% changes. 8% guy was working hard. He's trying to get a raise, I think, here. For Guardian Druid, we got 12% damage increase. Guardian Druid might be viable next patch in PvP if it keeps getting buffed like that. And this is not counteracted in PvP, so Feral's getting that 8%, it looks like. Chrono Warden for Evoker 4-set now additionally causes Temporal Burst to increase the damage and healing of Essence abilities by 30%. So a little bit of buff there. Scale Commander. Bombardment's damage is now properly increased by Might of the Black Dragonflight, Melt Armor, and other damage buffs when triggered by another player. Augmentation is getting a 5% damage buff. Devastation is getting a 3% damage buff. Pyre 20%, Firestorm 20%. The Pyre here is probably only a big deal during Dragon Rage in PvP, because you fire out one for free. Firestorm is, I don't even know how much they'd have to buff this to be viable. It's literally just a crappy blizzard. I really don't see that ever being like a huge viable talent, at least in PvP. Dark Ranger Beast Mastery, the Bell's Tolls has been updated. Damage bonus increased to 6%. Phantom Pain has been updated. Damage bonus increased to 30% from 20%. And Hunter received a lot of changes last time around. It was kind of hard to tell whether it was really getting increased or decreased. Marksman's definitely getting decreased. Black Arrow is getting an 8% damage reduction. For Pack Leader, Beast Mastery, Better Together has been updated. Dire Frenzy attack speed bonus reduced to 3 from 4. And pet damage bonus reduced to 3 from 5. So a little bit of a nerf to Pack Leader, at least for Beast Mastery. Mana Forge Omega 4-set bonus. Stampede has also been reduced by 20%. Sentinel, Mana Forge 2-set bonus. Boon of Elune aim shot damage reduced to 20% from 30. So Hunter nerfs across the board seemingly. 4-set bonus is also nerfed. Sentinel damage bonus reduced to 20 for 25. Beast Mastery, Killer Instinct has been updated. It now increases kill commands damage by 8 to 16 though, up from 5 to 10. But they've reduced all of your damage by 5%. So kill command's going to hit a little bit harder, but so putting a little bit more emphasis on kill command and taking away a bit of emphasis from other things. Very minor, but definitely reductions overall to Hunter. For Frostfire, Frostfire damage bursts been increased by 50%. Excess Frost now casts Ice Nova at 200% effectiveness, up from 150. Surprised to see these buffs. Mana Forge 2-set bonus. Ignite damage bonus increased to 75 from 50. Frostfire damage bonus increased to 8 from 5. They just nerfed this last time. Now they're buffing it again. Frostfire, Ice Nova, and Comet Storm damage bonus increased to 15 from 10. I'm very surprised because I thought these guys were overperforming. Frost 2-set bonus. Ignite effectiveness reduced to 25% from 30. And for Fire, developers notes, Fire, particularly Sun Fury, has been overperforming since the latest tuning pass. We'd like Fire's damage spells to continue to hit hard, so we're opting to reduce Ignite's damage instead. That's really bad for PvP. That's a bad sign. Because Sun Fury, I think, is not that great in PvP for Fire. I've seen a few Sun Fury Arcane Mages, but not Fire. And nerfing Ignite baseline is really bad for PvP. And then if it's coming from the set bonus, they give you a 3% overall damage nerf and a 10% to your Mastery Ignite damage. Controlled Destruction has been updated. Ignite damage bonus reduced to 3.3% per stack, also down from 0.5. But they buffed Meteor randomly by 20%. Now Meteor, what's funny is with Meteor with Fire with Frostfire Fire Mage is a lot of different rotations, but when you press Meteor, the Comet Storm that spawns actually it's harder than it. So I don't even know if 20% is a huge deal there. I feel like, I guess Ignite wasn't a big part of your damage anyway, so it's getting nerfed by 10%. You know, it's the bottom portion. Herald of the Sun for Paladin. Fixed an issue that caused Dawnlight's tooltip to display that it grants 6 stacks of Dawnlight instead of the intended 2. It's a visual fix. Pillars of Light, Beacon of Virtue healing increased by 25%. For Shadow, oh my god, Shadow Priest changes. You know what we haven't seen is Demon Hunter. I don't think I've seen Demon Hunter on a single one of these updates. Is that, maybe they're keeping it secret because there's a 3rd spec? Or is there legit just no Demon Hunter changes? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But for Shadow, Mind Blast damage increased by 30%, but not Void Blast. And this looks like it's going into PvP. Mind Flay Insanity is also getting 20% more damage. Halo is getting 30% more damage, so Archon might be viable. My Q just popped, not accepting it, but Psychic Link now causes direct damage to inflict 40% of their damage onto all of their targets affected by Vampiric Touch. However, Insidious Ire is now only going to increase damage by 10 to 20, down from 20 to 40. So a damage redistribution into more of your sustain abilities, it seems like. With this change, which might end up feeling bad. Like Mind Flay Insanity could feel pretty decent. Also, this doesn't apply to Void Blast, so like this, I think this one's the big one, because this is actually a pretty substantial loss. So it's, that could end up being bad depending on how the meta goes in PvP at least. Elemental Ancestor Chain Lightning damage increased by 40%. We don't care about that in PvP. Enhancement Shaman fixed an issue with the 4-set bonus, put Lava Lash on cooldowns. There's bug fixes here. Fixed an issue that caused Primordial Storm to cast at 100 instead of 200. So that's like a bug fix to help you do more damage. Primordial Storm cast by the Mana Force 2-set bonus will benefit from Maelstrom weapons. So these are kind of just bug fixes that help enhancement a lot. For Elemental, you're getting a bunch of damage buffs to all your spells, but they're not in PvP. 25% on Ellie Blast, 35% on Lightning Bolt, 35% on Lava Burst, 50% on Frost Shock. Bro, Ellie's that bad in PvE. Earthen Rage damage 35%, Earth Shock 25% damage, Ice Fury 35% damage. Those are some big swings. Enhancement Shaman fixed an issue causing Thorm's Invocation to sometimes cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning with 10 Maelstrom instead of with 5. A lot of bugs going on with enhancement here. For Warlock, Diabolist, Demonology 2-set bonus has been adjusted. Eye Blast damage reduced by 45%. Wicked Cleave damage reduced by 20, Chaos Salvo by 20, and Fellseeker by 20. So a lot of just the spawning demons getting nerfed here. for Affliction. Oh my god, they're letting you keep one. They're letting you guys keep one of these buffs. Every change I've seen for Aflock, you don't get to keep it in PvP. You're going to keep the 35% UA damage. Oh my god. But Dark Lair, you're not keeping the 35% on Dark Lair, though. Focus Malignancy now causes Malefic Rapture to deal 80% increased damage to targets affected by Unstable Affliction, up from 40, but not in PvP. But no, I think you're losing the set bonus that lets you get UA on multiple targets, so that's going to be a big loss when you lose that set bonus. Warriors, 5% guy, bro. Maybe they just didn't want us to think that it's only a 3% guy working, or maybe he wanted to go incognito, so he didn't, you know, he didn't want to take credit for all the changes, so he's taking some of these. But just 5% buffs to Warrior across the board here, and then some sneaky changes. An 8% Boomkin buff. I think Tettles complained on Twitter, and they're like, "We agree, Tettles. Here's 8% damage. Now shut up on Twitter," or something like that. But we're apparently going to keep that in PvP too. For Windwalker, your 4-set bonus now causes Flurry Strikes to trigger every 120 energy spent during Storm, Earth, and Fire, down from 150. And Windwalker is getting a 5% damage buff, but not in PvP. And I mean, Windwalker's one of the top damage. Main issue with Windwalker PvP is you can't move, but you do a lot of damage when you do actually get to hit something. So quite a big buff to some specs here. I think like the 5% baseline changes and 8% baseline changes probably have the biggest impact. Fire Mage might not end up being that great, man. I just tested it, made a video about it, got pretty pog about it, and some mages are saying like even with it in that state, it's probably not gonna be that great. After this, I got some concerns, and we're rolling up into the last week of testing, so I'll have to wait and see here. Is the axe gonna come down on DK and just totally snip you guys and prevent you guys from being viable? I really can't believe it if it actually happens again, because like, man, you guys just cannot catch a break if it does happen, even with a rework. But that's it for the update here, so thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.